Namaste, Jai Bharat. There took place a phenomenal change as far as the intellectuals of Bharat is concerned with the Mughal rule beginning. The Mughals, as we know, came from places like Turkey, etc. And they, in time, slowly, they came to settle down as a ruling class. They also brought many of their officers with them. And they started ruling. And we know the things that happened to the society. There was no real bifurcation in that sense of the term, though the Hindus stayed away from blending beyond a point with the Mughals. Now, many people became Muslims. They got converted. Now, these converts were Indians, basically, people of Bharat, and there evolved in time, through generations, a new class of Bharatiya Muslims. Now, the people of Bharat have their own unique specialities. Everyone has, but we have our own unique specialities because we have a Sanskriti, as I always keep saying, which is based on a knowledge tradition. And you look at the other Islamic world, especially of that time, you don't have an intellectual class in their societies. You hardly find an intellectual class in Islamic societies, except or barring some exceptions, individual exceptions. So in Bharat, there evolved a class of Muslim intellectuals which moves forward in time, and after the 1857 revolt, they evolves into separatist Muslim intellectuals by and large. This is maybe not for all, but for considerable amount of people. Now, during the initial days of the Mughal rule, the evolved or the newly evolving Muslim intellectuals of Bharat, they wanted to juxtapose everything that is Bharatiya with what is Islamic. They have done a mistake by identifying themselves more with Islam than with Bharatiya Sanskriti. This is what they do in perhaps most of the places, not really very meaningfully. They think it is meaningful, but that's really not the case. Given an introspection, they themselves shall understand at once that this doesn't really make much sense. So they began this process of mental juxtaposition with whatever is Bharatiya, and this juxtaposition went on. Now look at the initial and the first juxtaposition which happened like that. We speak a language in Bharat. By and large, we speak Hindi, and we write Hindi in the Devanagari script. Devanagari script is a script in which many languages are written in Bharat. Konkani is written in Devanagari. Marathi is written in Devanagari. Nepalese is written in Devanagari. So many of our language, they write using Devanagari script. And Sanskrit, of course, is written in Devanagari. Just because Devanagari is a script in which Vedas, Upanishads, and all other Hindu texts are written, the Muslim intellectuals thought it better to write the language which both Hindus and Muslims speak. Muslims wanted to write their language in Persian script. There's an irony. Persia, Iran, the language is Farsi, as they say, Parsi, they say in English. That is predominantly a Shia society. And Bharat is predominantly a Sunni society, and they have their quarrels and differences. But in spite of that, the intellectuals that time wanted to adopt Persian script for the simple reason that Farsi is the language that had so many translations from various other languages like Sanskrit. Many of our Sanskrit texts were very early translated into Farsi, long before. So Farsi is the only Islamic word or language which had a respectable literature, though not their own often, but in translation, but that makes the language richer. That must be the reason that they have adopted for Farsi script. So they started writing the same spoken language in Farsi script and subsequently called it as Urdu. So this is a major juxtaposition that we see in the beginning. So then you see the series of juxtapositions they made to perhaps, presumably, trying to be at par with Hindus. Maybe they were suffering some kind of complex right from the beginning. So similarly, I was just speculating upon the juxtaposition of similar nature with the story. The children usually hear it, Birbal Akbar story. Birbal Akbar story. Now wait, most of the children, all of us must in our childhood have come across this Birbal Akbar story. But my question here is that not another juxtaposition like this? There were so many series of juxtaposition. If you look at the history, the Islamic intellectuals were trying their best. They were trying to pose their rulers as the best in so many things. They took credit for construction of so many buildings, though the technology was not really something which they brought from the land or area which they came. The knowledge, the technical know-how, the knowledge which was essentially Bharatiya. These things they don't give credit, but they say that we have made it, fine, let them claim. And if they really have made it, they could have made it elsewhere also other than what you find in Bharat. Now, the Birbal Akbar story appears to me as another kind of juxtaposition of a story from the southern part of Bharat. We have a very powerful, strong Hindu empire, the Vijayanagara. And the Vijayanagara is not a matter of joke, because you see, one of the ministers in Vijayanagara was none other than Sayanacharya. Those who know philosophy know him. And Sayanacharya's family used to be similarly ministers. Vijayanagara was ruled by very, very scholarly, most of them were scholarly kings. In fact, almost every king of Bharat were scholars, because our tradition is that initially he was sent to learn. Look at the story of Sudama and Bhagavan Shri Krishna. They were sent to Gurukula. So it's a routine that even royal families, in fact royal families are more, sending their children for 25 years to learn in Gurukula. So it's just natural that the kings and rulers of Bharat are natural scholars, because that is how they begin their statecraft, through understanding and knowing things. So Vijayanagara had kings who were real scholars, and as the case in most cases in Bharat. And one of the popular Vijayanagara king was Krishna Deva Raya. And Krishna Deva Raya had a minister, advisor, a scholar, minister, advisor, everything. Normally the advisors are rishis, or sannyasis. He had such rishis, like Sayanacharya was a minister, means nothing more I need to say. He had a companion, an advisor, with whom he could probably share his thoughts, and his name was Tenali Rama. Tenali Rama. And the interactions and stories of Krishna Deva Raya and Tenali Rama these stories are very, very, very instructive, very intelligent, very meaningful, and very thought provoking. Anecdotes and anecdotes and anecdotes and such stories. This must, of course, have been popular right from the beginning of Vijayanagara. Must have been a spread common story. Now, with Akbar, people treat as the great, the later historians who were either who were doing these things either deliberately or inadvertently, whatever may be. Many people try to present Akbar as an ideal king. You have your own thoughts, you have your own understanding, whether you agree or not, it's your point. But many people tried out of way to probably project Akbar as one of the great kings, and they come to say Akbar the Great in the history books. Akbar the Great. The expression Shivaji the Great comes much later. It's up to you. If you understand history, if you go through history, you can make your own judgments. Why should I say I'm not here to prescribe? I'm only here to guide and show you path. It's up to you to walk or not to walk. So the Akbar Birbal stories came into existence. If you look at the parallels of Tenali Rama and Krishna Devaraya, you find the Akbar Birbal stories are just a copy of it. The question which I would like to ask is, was there really any Birbal in this sense of the term, who was a Tenali Rama to Krishna Devaraya? Birbal was to Akbar. This is what the people wanted to present. The same thing our historians were doing. Two kinds of historians we have. One is the left liberals kind of historians, who of course do not want any integrated nation. And another is the Islamic historians, who would of course desperately keep trying to glorify the Islamic rule, like Abdul Halim Sharar, who wrote about 45 novels. Fictions there, but with real characters of the glories of the Mughals. That was Sharar's job. So, the story of Akbar Birbal, you please think whether that can be really the case or absolutely it's imaginatory, just copying Tenali Rama and Krishna Devaraya of Vijayanagara Empire as a juxtaposition. They had been doing right from day one with the evolution of Islamic intellectuals in Bharat, because there could be a section of Islamic intellectuals in Bharat, because these Muslims are basically Bharatiyas. They will have all the characters of Bharatiya knowledge tradition and Bharatiya scholarship and Bharatiya Sanskriti. They will have, whether they accept it or not, or whether they are aware of it or not, or whether or not they are conscious about it. These things doesn't matter, but they do possess such things and do exhibit, and that exhibition is what we see. This, of course, had turned into separatism or separatist intellectual speculations after 1857 struggle for the first independence. But then before that, these things were happening in Bharat. So this very, very innocent appearing stories of Akbar Birbal must be taken with a pinch of salt. And please do think whether there really was a Birbal in that sense of the term. I don't know, there must have been somebody. But then in that sense of a term, where this is juxtaposed, the Akbar Birbal stories are juxtaposed with Tenali Rama and Krishna Devaraya. And Krishna Devaraya and Tenali Rama is really, really genuine stories which we know. And Akbar Birbal I doubt, because Akbar, of course, he did not know how to read and write. And he had never exhibited any kind of scholarship. Rather, he had exhibited a mediocre kind of intellectual level, as I understand. You could differ with me. No harm. So, please do think. We have such complications and confusions in our present time, which are presented to us. Many times, thoughts are bigotry is disguised in thought, deliberately, and at times inadvertently. And many times without really understanding that what people do are they're doing historical mistakes. We meet again with some other thoughts subsequently. Till then, Namaste, Jai Bharat, Jai Shri Ram.